What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome on in to our 2023-24 NBA season preview, rankings, predictions, odds, and much more. I'm your man, Riggs Tamburo. That is Bryson Owens and Anthony Hirsch. We got this thing covered for you guys. We are doing the whole damn thing today. As you guys know, Tuesday is when the NBA season starts. So we're going to try to get you guys as many winners, as much info, as much stuff as you need heading into the season. Hey, gentlemen, look. Let's start this pretty darn easily with the 2023 champs, which just so happens to be our local team, the Denver Nuggets. They obviously come into this one 133 days after taking down Miami in the finals. Bryson, your overall thoughts here on the Nuggets, man? I guess the very first question, easiest one is, are they going to be the same team, worse, or better?
I think it's going to be mostly the same. I mean, it's very rare for an NBA championship team to bring back 6 of their 8 rotation players from a playoff run, including their entire starting 5. The entire starting 5 is back. Christian Braun, who played as a rookie last year, is back and is going into his second year. So I think it's going to be mostly the same. The bench is a big question mark for this team. But the biggest question mark I think a lot of people have for the Denver Nuggets is how are they going to respond being the champs? For a long time, for their entire franchise history, they've been this underdog story that no one really takes that seriously. They've had really good players like Alex English, David Thompson, Melo, and now Jokic. And so they've had those like star players, but they've never really been taken seriously as a contender. So this is their first time being the team that people are looking up to going into a season. So it's going to be very interesting how this team responds to that. But with the guys that they have on this roster, they're very mature. They seem ready. They seem focused on being the champs going into the season. So I think it's going to be a lot of the same, which led to a championship last year. So I can't complain too much if that's the case.
Fair enough, Anthony. You look over, man, at last year, but going into last season, we were looking at Mike Malone, and we were like, "Hey, this guy might be on the hot seat." Obviously, he's now returning. I mean, you win a finals, you're not going anywhere. But he's back. Jamal Murray appears to be healthy. Joker returned from Serbia. Looked like he had a darn good time this summer celebrating, but they are back in business. Michael Porter Jr., I mean, like Bryson said, this team is really returning a lot of their key players here. What's your take on the boys? And where do you find concerns in this football team? Look at me. Oh, my God.
I think the biggest thing starts with, I mean, these guys are coming back healthy. Like, this is the first offseason I can remember in a long time where all the core guys, all healthy, just having a restful offseason. Seems like they're really building good connections. I know Aaron Gordon freaking went out to Serbia to Jokic's little, small town out there. Looks like they're having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
I think Bryson highlighted their biggest concern. They just got to lock down this second unit for out there. A lot of moving pieces. We're not really sure who's going to be the guy. Obviously, re-signing Najee, getting Reggie Jackson back, hopefully get him into the fold a little bit. I thought they had chances last year where they could have used him, but he just didn't really see the court. But honestly, if they're able to lock that down, I think, always defense with this team, offense is always going to be there. So just making sure that you're able to, kind of stop some of these big performers in the West. And I think they should be good. I'm not so sure it's going to be the same type of season or we see them in the number 1 spot the entire year with a couple of games cushion. I could see it being a little bit closer than that, but I don't see them falling outside of top 2, top 3. I think regular season wise, they're set. The biggest thing is staying healthy, making sure that they're able to fix some of these things, feel it out during the regular season, come ready for playoffs.
Bryson, I'm seeing one guy that just keeps popping up in everything I'm seeing Nuggets, and that's Christian Braun. Obviously, last year, this kid came on like a star, in my opinion. I think he did everything he could have done, but obviously you got guys like Bruce Brown gone. You need those bench guys now to come up, play a bigger role in this team. Do you expect a lot out of him, or do you think maybe what we saw last year, we should kind of pump the brakes and not get overhyped on this kid?
I think you should have big expectations for Christian Braun. He was phenomenal as a rookie. And the big thing that Christian Braun did was he just played his role. A lot of rookies, they come in. He was a high prospect in high school, won a lot of state championships there, won a national championship in Kansas. A lot of kids his age with that much like winning experience would come into an NBA team wanting to be the guy, wanting to be the star, wanting to be one of the top guys for the reason like the team wins the games. And Christian just came in, played his role, played an amazing defense all year long, brought energy. And now he's got a different type of role where he's replacing a lot of what Bruce Brown did, which is a lot more offense. Bruce Brown handled the ball a lot for the second unit. He was a better three-point shooter than Christian was. So I think you should have big expectations for Christian, because nothing about this kid screams to me that he's going to regress going into a second year. If anything, he's going to be very similar to what he was last year, which was a defensive, like, lockdown guy. But if he can take a step up in both, like, three-point shooting and his ball handling and just kind of being the leader on the offense for the second unit, that's a huge thing for this Denver Nuggets team.
I agree, man. Big expectations here for Christian Braun, and he's capable of getting it done based on what we saw. Obviously, you give him an entire offseason. Your first year in the NBA, that's tough in itself. Just that level change. So, Anthony, got to talk about it though, man. Our win total projection right now, 52.5 wins, obviously 82 games overall, 52.5. If you want to take it, you can get it at plus 105 odds. Would you take a shot here on the over?
With the odds, I'll take a shot with it. I mean, I think that the West did get a little bit better this year, but with some of the new rule changes, we're going to see Jamal Murray, the combination of Jamal Murray, MPJ, and Jokic out there much more than we did last year. And I think in the end, that's just going to end up winning in ball games. I think last year, like a ton of games they lost, especially early on, were almost like these planned losses where they knew, Jamal's coming off an injury. We're going to rest select guys on select days and just kind of accept these losses. I just don't see the same thing happening this year. And I also think that with the new in-season tournament, that's also going to give them a chance to get some easy wins and just get some more wins, getting up to that championship in the middle of the season. So, yeah, I'll try the over here.
I'm going to walk the same path you are right now with that kind of, yeah, sure, I'll go over here. I'm with you here. I'll tell you what, there's a couple other teams that have a slightly higher win total, and I truly believe we're still a top, no matter what, we're a top 3 basketball team right now in the NBA. So I'm going to go over as well with you on the over 52.5, guys. I do want to throw out there, if you don't want the plus money and you're willing to lay the number, you can get it at 51.5 for minus 125. So you pick your poison, but I'm with Anthony. The plus 105 is good enough. I'm going over. Bryson, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on the over. And the big thing for me is it's going to come down to Jamal Murray. I think Jamal is going to be an all-star this year. And if you combine Jokic as an MVP candidate, and if Jamal can play at an all-star level for an entire regular season, that's 5+ more wins built into the NBA regular season. Like you said, Anthony, there's just not going to be as many of those like planned losses early on if Jamal is playing at that level.
Well, guys, any other thoughts here to close out the Denver Nuggets before we jump on over to these Milwaukee Bucks? I'm good.
I think that one thing that people need to realize with the Denver Nuggets is it's going to be a little bit messy at times. This bench is a question mark. They have a lot of moving parts. Losing Bruce Brown was a big loss for this team. And so I think the big thing for this regular season is the Nuggets are going to be looking for 1 or 2 more reliable players on this roster for the playoff run. I don't think the regular season is the goal for the Nuggets. Their goal is to figure out who they can trust come the playoffs.
There you go, guys. That is it for our 2022-23 champions. Good luck to our boys. Jumping over, though, to now the favorite in the NBA to win this entire thing, and what an offseason, postseason last year it's been. They entered the postseason with the best record in the NBA. They get upset in the very first round in 5 games to Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. They fire their head coach. They replace him with Adrian Griffin. They trade for Damian Lillard, the all-time pro. I mean, Anthony, this basketball team, they have so much potential to be great, but they also have potential to be a complete flop. Which side are you on here?
If I'm going to be honest, I mean, it's scary hearing all of these crazy expectations for this team. I mean, overnight became the favorites to win the NBA championship. To me, that seems a little bit crazy. Like, I want to see the way that Dame is able to play with Giannis. I'm a little nervous, if I'm going to be, completely honest. I'm nervous that he's coming from a situation where he was the guy. And there wasn't really anyone else around him, and he knew that. Now he's coming into a situation where he has to understand Giannis is the guy. He's the guy that you have to get the ball to consistently. His point total should go down if this is going to be a better team, and I'm not sure that he's going to be okay with that. It's a little nerve-wracking also when we're seeing him come out and say that he wants to be a member of the Miami Heat and that he's going to request a trade to whatever team he goes to. So now it's like, are we going to run into a chemistry, situation here, or is he just going to be content being with Milwaukee? It's interesting. I think it's also interesting to see what's going to happen with Giannis because, yes, you could see this move as we're trying to get a star player to help Giannis, but you could also see it as we think Giannis is going to leave, so we're going to try to replace him now. And I think Giannis feels that as well.
There's a little theory for you. Let me ask you this because you're talking about it. I'm getting the same vibe you're getting. It almost has that Luka Kyrie thing. Remember last year when they got Kyrie and overnight it was like, oh, they're now a top 3 team to win it all. They're going to go all the way. You already had Luka. Now you're bringing – and it just didn't mesh how they thought it was going to mesh. So anyway, I kind of compared to that. Bryson, I'm in complete agreement with Anthony here. I feel like this team is set up for success, but they do not deserve to be favored overnight between losing their head coach and bringing in one player. Are you convinced here?
I'm a little bit more confident in them than you guys are. I think you mentioned it when you were doing the breakdown of this team. They were the number 1 seed in the entire NBA going into the postseason last year. And they did lose in the first round, but part of that was Giannis got hurt. He got hurt in the first game, hurt his back. He did not play the same after that. And I think what Damian Lillard brings to this team that they've been missing for so long is a dynamic offensive player with the ball in his hands who can shoot. Giannis is a dynamic offensive player with the ball in his hands, going downhill, running like a bull in a china shop, just at the basket. He doesn't care how many things he breaks, he's getting to that basket. Damian Lillard provides a threat from the 3-point line that Jrue Holiday, who as great as Jrue Holiday is, he's a great defender, really good overall basketball player, does not have the same threat Damian Lillard does. My biggest concern is the defense. I think they lost a lot of defense losing Jrue Holiday in that trade. But then also the bench. They are very thin. And they are a Giannis injury, which I mentioned the way he plays. He plays reckless. He's not afraid to get hurt. A Damian injury, which he's getting up there in age. He's not as durable as he used to be in his career. They're one of those 2 guys injury away from that season kind of getting derailed. So that's my biggest concern with this team. But Lillard and Giannis might just be the best 2-man game in the NBA. It's very dynamic. It's very threatening on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm a little bit more confident in the Bucks than you guys are.
I will say, I hear everything you're saying, and I think Anthony's on that side too of like, yes, this team has the pieces now to be great. But when you have a weak bench, you have a guy that plays as aggressive as Giannis does, as you just mentioned, you have a brand new piece to the team who, by the way, yes, he was a dog where he was before, but it's a whole new team now. So like, I agree with you that this team could clearly, after 1 month of basketball, we could be like, yo, this is the team to beat. They are a problem. They look great, but we also might see them fall to like 3rd or 4th favorite in the NBA, and they got to get something worked out. And I do think if Dame goes down, they have potential to still go all the way and get this thing done. But if Giannis goes down, I mean, it's like if Joker goes down. Let's be real here. Everything changes. Everything turns bad. That's just the NBA for it. You only get 5 guys at a time. So every single guy matters. So anyway, looking at the over-under win total for this team right now, the Bucks coming in at 54.5 at minus 105 to minus 110, depending where you're looking. Anthony, that is 2 more games more than the Denver Nuggets. Is it too high?
I think it is a little too high. I mean, just taking a look at the rest of the East, that's a huge win total. I think that they have a very good year, and I think they do finish first. I think they roll through the regular season as we've seen. It is going to be interesting, though, like Bryson mentioned, and I think this is going to be something that's really starts to appear once we get a couple weeks into the season. This team got a lot worse defensively, losing Jrue Holiday and also losing a leader in Jrue Holiday. I mean, he was so happy to be there. We even saw in a tweet a couple days before he left. He was talking about how much he loved the city, how much he loved the team, and how he wanted to stay there the rest of his career. Ends up getting traded a couple of days later. But I think it's going to be interesting, with all the offensive firepower. I think sometimes we forget that this team wins games based on their defense. One of the best defensive teams last year. It's going to be interesting to see how they remedy that this year.
Under 54.5. Anthony, I think you're on to something here, brother. But, Bryson, what you got, man?
I'm going to take the over here. They won 58 games last year, and I mentioned that Damian Lillard brings something to this roster that they didn't really have before, which is that dynamic offensive player. He can take over a game late. I think one of the problems with the Bucks last year is, yes, they were great defensively, but if with like 3 minutes left in the game, if they were down by 10, they didn't really have the offensive firepower to really get back into those games. Having Damian Lillard who can get them back in that game with 2 shots in 30 seconds, 2 3-pointers in 30 seconds gives them a much better chance to stay in those type of ball games. So they won 58 games last year. I don't think they're much worse than they were a year ago. I'm going to have them taking the over.
I am barely in agreement with you. I think this basketball team wins 55 games. I'm giving them 56 at the very best. I think they're too good right now. The pieces make too much sense to go under right now for me. However, I'm not sitting here slamming this, especially because I know deep in my heart, I know that the public is staring at this over, and they're probably all slamming this over. And for that reason, I'm kind of like, why is it not 55 and a half? You know, why is it not that extra game? And they're kind of trying to they're trying to bait you there. I think they know 54 is pretty much the right number here. So I'll go over as well, but I think it's a pretty scary over under. This team it's like the Dodgers, dude, in baseball. They could either blow this, they could get to 100 wins and they'll be the best team and da-da-da, or they'll do what the Dodgers just did. And you'll kind of look back and be like, like they had the pieces and they still just didn't quite put it all together. So anyway, enough of them. Jumping on over to their co-favorite to win it all, the Boston Celtics, nearly pulling off that first 3-0 comeback in NBA history ever in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Miami Heat. They let that one go. They do not make it. I have to ask you guys, I bashed this basketball team last year. I'm going to probably be bashing them a lot this year. I think they're a perfect example of you have the pieces, but you can't put it all together. Every single year, it feels like they get to where they got to get to and they fall off, whether it's Jason's fault, whether it was on Marcus Smart, whatever you want to say. I just think there's so many problems here. Obviously, they did make some significant changes over the summer. Bryson, your take on this Boston Celtics team. Are they the best team in the NBA?
I think you're going to look at this team, and on paper, they look like the best team in the NBA. They're going to win a lot of regular season games. But it all comes down to what they're gonna do in the playoffs. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown specifically as a duo is a tough duo in my opinion to really go far in a playoff run, just because they're too similar. It's a very rare case where your 2 stars are too much of the same person, and it's causing the rest of the roster to not really be as coherent. This is the most complete Boston Celtics team though in the Jason Tatum era. I love the trade for Jrue Holiday. He is a true point guard. Marcus Smart is a phenomenal defender. He was a fan favorite, did a lot of really good things for them. But Jrue Holiday is the most true point guard this team has had in the Jason Tatum era. The trade for Porzingis is risky. Health-wise, it's hit or miss with him. But if he can stay healthy, he is a very dynamic, rim-protecting big man who can shoot the 3 ball, provides a lot of spacing for that team. So the one concern I have with the Celtics it's a common theme with a lot of the top teams, and this just happens when you have an expensive roster, is the bench. They are very thin in a lot of places, especially in the big man spot. It's really just Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford as your big men who you can rely on consistently. So it's concerning there for me. But man, the starting 5 alone for the Boston Celtics is phenomenal. They have a couple really good bench players. I think their coach is better than people think. I think he was given a really tough situation last year, being the head coach like a week before the season started. That's a tough place for a guy to be in. So I'm pretty confident in the Boston Celtics. I don't know how they're going to look come playoff time because it always comes down to whatever Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are like mentally when it gets to there. But for a regular season, this is a very dangerous Boston Celtics team.
I'm hearing you on this starting 5, especially the big 4. But Anthony, I do have to counter one thing that Bryson said here, and that is the depth on this team. I don't really think they have much depth on this team. I think their depth on this team is in trouble here. I know that you're starting 5, that's great, but every single day in the NBA, somebody sits out, and it only takes so long until one of your stars goes down. If Jason Tatum goes down, who's going to fill? If Brown goes down, who's going to fill? Like, I don't know. I personally, I'm not convinced by this basketball team. I put the Bucks above them right now. I put the Nuggets above them right now. I know they're the co-favorite to win this whole thing, but Bryson, I hear what you're saying about it could be the most complete team. It might be, but I still, to this moment, think they have depth issues. Anthony,
I agree.
What's your take here, man? Are the Celtics a problem?
These guys are frauds. I mean, come on. First of all, I really do have to question getting rid of Marcus Smart. I'm like, you're telling me for a guy like that who's coming off of, recently removed Defensive Player of the Year, we know what this guy means to this team. You look when they take timeouts, it's none of the coaches in there. It was Marcus Smart leading those meetings. He was the defensive, basically head coach of this team, and you tell him to get out. I understand bringing in Drew Holiday, like Bryson saying, you really do bring in that true point guard. He is also very good defensively, but he just doesn't have that same kind of mesh. It's going to take time. You really love to use someone like that for his leadership abilities, but it's just going to take time, to get to know these players, find the best way to lead. And also with that, with Smart leaving, you have to look at Tatum to really step up into more of that leadership role, which we all know he can't do. He is not a leader on this team. He's going to put in his work, punch in the time card 9 to 5, and then that dude's getting home. This team their ceiling is as high as Tatum and Brown. I think Bryson did a very good job of showing that. These two guys, they can't put it together. Whatever reason it is, it's like they should know that by now. They keep trying to change up the supporting cast, but it's like if your talent, your main two stars just crap the bed every time that the light shines brightest, then I don't really know what you're trying to do with this basketball team.
Well said, man. I agree with you. First of all, love the fraud take there. I'm kind of right there. Like I said, I don't know if they're frauds, but they are a borderline top 4 basketball team for me, top 5. Like, I really think there's multiple teams that I would take to beat this team in a series or even in a one-time game. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But I do got to ask you, Bryson, any other concerns with this team before we go into their win total on the year? Is there anything, because I know you're high on them, like, is there anything that worries you about this basketball team?
Well, we both mentioned it earlier. The depth is scary for this team. There's really only 2, maybe 3 guys coming off the bench for this team that I really trust. They have Derek White, who's one of the best backup guards in the NBA. He's phenomenal. But then you've got Peyton Pritchard, who's a pretty good sharpshooter at the guard position that the team really likes. Luke Cornett, who's a big man who can rebound really well. He's a decent rim protector. But the big thing that gives me confidence in this Celtics team is, one, the fact that the Eastern Conference is kind of weak. After the top 2 teams, the Bucks and Celtics, it's kind of a crapshoot. You have no idea what the rest of the conference is going to look like. And then I really think Drew Holiday is a significant upgrade over Marcus Smart. He's a much better offensive player. I think he's a more mature player. Defensively, I know Marcus Smart won a Defensive Player of the Year award, which he deserved for sure. But I would take Drew Holiday's defense consistently over Marcus Smart's, in my opinion. I think they have the best defense in the Eastern Conference. I just, if they can stay healthy in a regular season, this team can make a lot of noise.
Okay. Over under on their win total, Bryson. It is the highest over under in all of basketball, 55.5. Does the over hit?
This is really tough because I mentioned I have the Bucks going on the over of theirs. I was with you. I was somewhere around 56. I have 57 wins as their cap. This is really tough because 55 is what I would say for the Boston Celtics, which is under. So I'm probably going to take the under here and have them winning somewhere around 54 to 55 games. Not to say that doesn't mean that they weren't still good. I have them as the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, but that they nailed that line, in my opinion, for the Boston Celtics.
I'm right there with you. I think they nailed it too, and I'm on the under as well here. I think 54 to 55 is correct. I think if all goes wrong, they're in that 51, 52 range, and I think they peak at about that 57. I mean, they nailed it on the head for straight up, no matter what, but at the same time, I can't say what I just said about this team and then go over. So I got to go under 55.5. Anthony, are you jumping on this with us? You're going to surprise us here, man.
No, this has to be the under here. They will rack up wins. That's not going to be a surprise. I mean, like Bryson said, this is a very top-heavy conference. But I also think that with how weak the East is, I think some of those bottom teams are going to drag down the top teams. And I could see these records kind of getting, maybe 10 games above 500 and a lot of teams being really close together, really beneath the top 2 or 3. So I'll go under here barely, but it's going to be really close, like you guys have been saying.
We're all on the under, but we're all on the under barely. So you guys can go ahead and pick your poison, but we're going to need to see it before we believe it here with the Boston Celtics. Jumping on over to one more of the big 4 teams before we get into our division winners, our NBA Finals predictions, and the very first game of the year between the Lakers and the Nuggets. Got to talk about these Phoenix Suns, man. I'm going to try to take a breath here, get ready for this one, give them a fair shot. Looking at these boys, what happened last year, they get knocked out in the second round against our Denver Nuggets. Per usual, the Phoenix Suns absolutely shit the bed and pretty much get demolished in game 5 and 6, which at this point, 2 years in a row, we've seen this team we're sitting there watching the game going, what happened? Devin Booker, Chris Paul, like, what is going on here? Thank God they got rid of DeAndre Ayton. I've been saying that for 2 years now. It finally got done after they gave him that max contract last year. So he's gone. I think that's a step in the right direction. But Bryson, you look here at these guys. Monty Williams, gone, questionable. Some people think it's a bad move. Some think it's a good move. Frank Vogel is the new guy. Your take on the Phoenix Suns, man. I feel like there's a lot of pieces that moved around in the offseason. There is still a lot of key stars returning, but there's just, I don't know. For me, there's too many question marks here. What's your take on the Suns?
Yeah, they're easily the noisiest team in the offseason. They made the big splash trade for Bradley Beal, which I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not sold on. I'm not a big Bradley Beal guy. I mentioned earlier with Tatum and Brown being too much of the same player. The Phoenix Suns' big 3 are all the exact same player. They are guys who need the ball in their hand. They dribble down to about 5 seconds on the shot clock, work their way to a mid-range jumper, and they make mid-range jumpers, but no one likes to take them. They're the least efficient shot in the NBA. And so I'm not sold on them. Their big 3 is also a team that they're relying on 3 guys who have missed 25-plus games for the last 3 straight years. Beal and KD can't stay healthy at this point. Booker's even starting to take on injuries, and now Booker's got an even bigger workload going into the season because he's probably the starting point guard, and he's going to be leading that offense for the rest of the season after they traded Chris Paul. And I know you mentioned they traded DeAndre Ayton. I know you hate DeAndre Ayton, but Yusuf Nurkic is not an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton. Yusuf Nurkic is barely a starting center in the NBA, in my opinion. He is not. He's a terrible defender. He's a terrible leader. He's got attitude problems. I'm not a Yusuf Nurkic guy.
He's a little cheaper.
I think he's a lot cheaper, and there's a reason he's cheaper. It's because he can't really play in the NBA when it gets the elite big men. But I think this team has a lot of question marks that people aren't really realizing. I think what's funny is when they lost to the Denver Nuggets, everyone's like, oh my God, they just need more stars. They just need more names. That's not why they lost to the Denver Nuggets. They lost because they couldn't defend me. I could have scored on that Phoenix Suns team, and they got worse defensively. They're not a good defensive team. So I'm not sold on them. I think they have way too many question marks to be labeled as the best team in the Western Conference.
Bryson coming in hot, and I absolutely love it. I do agree with you. Look, I'm not saying that the replacement is better than Ayton, but Ayton was never worth the money. He'll never be worth the money. And now hopefully they can at least take that money and bring in, like you mentioned, some other pieces that aren't stars, but are just supporting cast, couple bench players, get some more depth for this team. I love that you brought up the injuries. You got 35-year-old Kevin Durant out there. Oof. The dude is too tall, too old, and been through too much to be relied on to make it through an entire season. I love KD. I think he's great. I love his mentality. But at the end of the day, there is no way that this guy makes it through the entire season. I just don't. It's like a tight end in the NFL. Like, it's great, but he's going to get beat up at some point. He's going to be like, oh, this sucks. So, Anthony, the pressure for the Phoenix Suns, to me, it is on from day one. It's been on. It's going to stay on. Do you think Booker and company can handle it?
Absolutely. I really do think they can. They were a better team. Getting rid of Aiden is like when you get rid of that disgruntled employee that just no one likes being around. They just hate every second. The company finally gets rid of them and everyone can
Yeah.
finally take a deep breath. Getting him out, I know that Nurkic might not be as talented. I do think that he brings a different look to this Phoenix Suns team. And then Beal, I mean, I think you guys are kind of undervaluing what he can bring to a team like this. You bring in a true point guard, and he's good to put up 26, 27 a season. And we've never really seen him with this kind of firepower. It's going to be really interesting to see how he's going to be able to distribute the ball between KD and Booker. But like you guys said, obviously, injuries are going to be the biggest concern. But bringing in a guy, like Bradley Beal, it allows Durant and Booker kind of take a little bit of the load off because they know they have a third really defined scorer right there where it's not just those two guys. I think this is going to be the best team in the West.
Wow. Bryson, you got anything to say to that?
Yeah, I'm not sold on this big three. I think they're too much of the same guy where, like I mentioned, all they take is mid-range jumpers. They're not good defensively. I can guarantee Beal and Booker are going to Beal and KD are going to miss about 20 to 25 games each. They're pretty weak on their bench too. Like the rest of these top teams, like I mentioned, they're pretty weak on the bench. I'm just not sold. I'm not sold. Beal has never been proven to be a winner. It's going to be interesting to see him as a third option on a team as opposed to the first option. I think there's a lot of volatility on this team.
Whew. Well, guys, I guess only time will tell with this team. Their win total right now is 51.5. Anthony, seeing that you think this is the best team in the West, is the over the move here for you?
I think the over is definitely going to be the move. I mean, with the new rules, again, the Suns are another one of these teams that love, having these kind of big threes, before when it was with CP3. They love to mix and match, and kind of always sit someone out, especially, with the age of Kevin Durant. But now with the new rules, having to play, this big three more often, more consistently, one is going to give them a chance to really grow accustomed to each other, feel out each other's games, see what works, what doesn't work early on in the season. And when you have that three on the court, I mean, they're going to win a majority of their games. I think that this team ends number one in the Western Conference. I'm not sure if it helps them come postseason time, but I think they do end with that number one seed. Got to take the over here.
We were going to touch on it a little bit later in the show, but you just brought it up, and I'd love to talk about it now if you're cool. The new rule. Obviously, if you could just go a little bit more in depth on that for those that do not know about it yet, why is it so significant here, especially for teams like the Suns that have a bunch of stars?
Basically, the NBA, Bryson probably explained a little bit better what the actual line is for what you define a star. But the NBA has defined stars in this league and are going to start penalizing teams if you sit your so-called stars for these rest management games. And also, if you have multiple stars on a team, you'll get fined for not playing all of them or sitting one guy out. It's going to be a huge, huge, huge improvement on what we were seeing with you get regular season games where none of the starters are playing, which is one of the reasons that a ton of people kind of stopped watching NBA regular season.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine saving up all this money to go to one game and you finally pick a game that's a month and a half down the road and you're so excited for it, and you go there and Jamal Murray and Joker are sitting out? Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
that's just, it's really hard for the fans as well. Like you mentioned, just watching on TV is hard, let alone going to the games, and you get there and all your favorite players aren't even playing. So on top of that, Bryson, do you think that they're going to work this system though? Do you think they're going to be like, oh yeah, so we're sitting, we'll use the Suns here. Oh, we're going to go ahead and sit, I don't know, Kevin Durant today and rest him. Oh, and by the way, Devin Booker, he's not feeling well. He's got a stomach ache. He's injured for the day. Or, oh, his finger was bothering him. He's out for the day. Do you think they can kind of do that, or do you think the league's going to call BS on that?
Oh, this rule is going to get exploited. I like that the NBA is trying to make an attempt on this kind of stuff, but it's going to be exploited in some way. Their teams are going to find some way to get their guys rested when they can. The thing about the Suns is they may not need to exploit the rule. Those guys just might actually be hurt. Those guys might just actually miss 3 weeks with a hamstring injury and might just actually not need a rest. They're just done.
Yeah. It should be something that's like, if you're going to sit out like that, it should be like a 3-game thing or something like that. Almost like an injured reserve, like in the NFL. Like if you're hurt, fine, but you don't get to be hurt for 1 game and then come back tomorrow night. Cause no. I don't like that.
There's not going to be those, oh, he had a sore foot, he's out today, but he'll play tomorrow. Kind of situation. There's going to be less of those. You can't get away with those as often.
Bryson, over under 51.5 wins. Where are you going on this number?
I'm going to go with the under here. I have them finishing 3rd in the West. They only won 45 games last year. And I mentioned I'm not sold on the Bradley Beal thing. I think Yusuf Nurkic is a worse player than DeAndre Ayton. And it's just more injury-riddled players heading into the season. So I have them sitting somewhere around 49 to 50 wins, just hitting that under.
Man, I like that you brought up the 45 because you're putting in perspective that is this team going to win 7 more basketball games than they won last year? I struggle with that, but I think Anthony made a great point for the over as well. I'm really 50-50 on this. I will go under, and that's only because I'm pissed that they got rid of Monty Williams. I truly think that is a bigger mistake than it's being hyped up to be. I remember when it first happened, we were all like, what? That's the guy that was the fall guy for this team, was one of the guys that was the only bright spot of this entire team. So I will go under. I'm going to put them at 50 wins on the year. I do think it's 5 wins better than last year, but I'm struggling to get to 7 or more wins than last year. So Anthony going over, Bryson and I both going under here. Let's jump on over to some futures, if you would, looking at division winners, guys. Obviously, as you guys can see here, scrolling on the ticker for those that do want to see it, we got win total scrolling as we go on here. We got some NBA futures odds for you. MVP odds are going to be scrolling on there as well. But looking over at the divisions, we can go ahead and start here with the Pacific Division. Suns plus 145 to win it all. Lakers plus 350. Warriors 360. Clippers at 550, and the Sacramento Kings at 9-1 odds. I know we didn't touch on the Lakers, but by the way, they got the honorable mention. I had to pick the top 4. I can't put them at 4. I think they belong at 5 or 6. Anthony, Suns at 145, Lakers at 350, and the Warriors at 360. I think it's down to these 3. Who do you like here in the Pacific?
Can I just a little shout out real quick? What the hell are they doing with the Kings? I mean, coming off of last year, you're going to be fading them like that. They're my dark horse favorite to win this division. I think that they're still a really talented group of guys here with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis. I mean, these guys played really well last year. They were also, I mean, standings-wise, they're one of the top teams in the West the entire year. So you're going to go out and tell me that you're going to fade them? I don't know about that. I think they're not going to be my favorite. They're my dark horse favorite. And I think you also have to give a little bit of consideration to the Warriors. I mean, I know last year they underperformed, but I think getting rid of Poole is big for this team. They're finally one unit again. You're not dealing with any of this outside noise. Bringing in a guy like CP3 with that kind of experience is also a very interesting move. But what are you doing, odds makers? Come on now.
Anthony, are the Warriors better than the Lakers?
Yes, in my opinion.
Ooh.
All right, Bryson, who you got here? Anthony, obviously, come on, man. You're going with your Phoenix Suns, you know. But hey, I like the Sacramento Kings pick at 9-1. I think there's a ton of value there. But Bryson, what do you like here?
Yeah, I like the shadow with the Kings a lot. They did finish 3rd in the conference last year, so they were extremely good. And to be the last place team for the odds here, I put them ahead of the Clippers, in my opinion. I think the Clippers aren't going to be as good as people think, as they always are. But I have the Lakers winning this division. I have the Lakers finishing 2nd in the West. I think they are better than they were last year, especially to start the season. They got off to a horrendous start last year and to work their way all the way back. And if people remember, after the trade deadline, they had the best record in the NBA and they had the best defense in the NBA. I think this is a better team than they were to start last season, so they're going to get off to a better start this year. So I told you I'm fading the Suns a little bit. They're my 3rd place team in the Western Conference. Lakers are jumping just ahead of them at the 2nd place team. So I have them winning the Pacific.
LeBron James retirement year, question mark?
Not until Bronny plays. He's gonna play with Bronny somehow.
Okay.
He'll
Even
keep
after
taking
the
that
whole
anti-aging
what happened
serum.
to Bronny in the offseason, do you think Bronny's still going to the league?
He'll find a way. Someone will take
Okay.
a chance on Bronny just to have LeBron on the team. Even if
Okay.
Bronny is good in college, someone will take a chance on him.
That's actually probably very true. Just for the jersey sales and the hype and the views and all
Yeah.
that alone. If LeBron comes
Charlotte
out and
Hornets
goes to a team, that's what I'm saying, right? Like they're gonna sell out every freaking home game if they sign LeBron James though in his final year. So, all right, man. Look, I'm gonna. Oh my God. Well, look, I can't pick the Warriors. I like the Kings pick. I agree with you. I think the Clippers, they're going to be the bottom of this division. I don't even know why they're even getting a little bit of respect here. But I think I'm going to say Lakers with Bryson. And that's only because if the Suns and the Lakers were the same odds, I would take the Suns. But I think that the Lakers here are going to be pretty much just as good. I put them right around that 50-51 number as well. So if you're going to give me 140 plus 145 or plus 360, I guess I got to take the plus 360 here. So Lakers to get it done for Bryson and I. Anthony, jumping on over, man, to our next division, the Central Division. You got the Bucks. They are major favorites here at minus 350, Cavs plus 270. And then everybody else is just falling in the distance. You got the Bulls at 40-1, Pacers at 40-1, and the worst team in the NBA, the Pistons, at 200-1. Do the Cavs have a shot here, or is this Bucks no matter what?
The Cavs do have an outside shot. I think they're going to put up really good numbers this year. They're one of my dark horse favorites this year. I think a lot of people, just with the noise of the offseason for a couple of these bigger teams, they've kind of been forgotten about. People forget this is a really good basketball team, probably the best defensive big men unit in the league. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. I just don't think they have a shot to actually go out and have a better record than the Bucks. It's really tough to be betting on this Eastern Conference divisions just with these, you have really two of these powerhouses. And then the rest, I mean, we're going to see, I think it's going to be really tight within that group.
I'm with you, man. I'm going to take the Bucks. I know, aren't I so much fun? But they are the best team here. It's not even close. Most people are going to argue that they're the best team in the NBA. They at least got to be the best team in the Central if they're going to even get close to what we talked about earlier in the day. However, I remember last year, even with you guys, we would be on a ton of shows. We would take the Cavs all the freaking time. We love the Cavs. We love the under. We love the Cavs at the spread. They were just that kind of team that they kept themselves in games. They're elite here. And if Giannis goes down or something like that, they definitely have a shot here to get this thing done. I'll sprinkle plus 270 just because the value is there. You can't look any deeper here, in my opinion. Bryson, is it the Bucks all the way? And is there any way any of those other three teams make any noise at all?
Yeah, I hate to be boring, but I'm taking the Bucks. I have the Bucks finishing first in the Eastern Conference, so naturally I have them winning the division. I do like the Cavs. I think they're going to finish somewhere around a 5 or 6 seed. They're a good team. They have a little bit of chemistry issues going on with Donovan Mitchell not really wanting to be there. He wants to go to New York. He wants to be a New York Knick. So it's going to be kind of messy with him at times this season. But I think the Bucks are just way too good to not take them to win this division. I know the odds aren't great. I know it's not going to be fun to bet on this, but I think it's too easy to take the Bucks here.
Yeah, we're not going to waste any more time on the Central Division, guys. It's Bucks and Bucks all day. If you want to go ahead and find a long shot, go with the plus 270 Cavs, but do not waste your money looking any deeper than that. Jumping over to the Atlantic Division, this division has the fake pity MVP in it, and they are the second favorites. The 76ers are plus 350. You got the Knicks at 9-1, the Raptors and Nets both at 40-1, and the Boston Celtics here, major favorites at minus 280. Anthony, we were not high on the 76ers last year. I'm not high on the 76ers this year. Do you give these guys a shot here at plus 350 to upset Boston?
Oh, no, I don't at all. I'm taking a look at, the Bucks and the Celtics.
I know who you're looking at.
Bing bong, baby, bing bong, Knicks tape. I take a look, top teams get so much freaking better. And what did the Sixers do? You have a James Harden who is now just a pest in the NBA, where if he goes to you, He'll be maybe content for half the season, and then he'll request a trade. Yep. He's one of the messiest players to be around. I don't think any player's going to be jumping, and I mean, any team's going to be jumping at the fact to get him. So that's been honestly taking more of the attention than the actual basketball being played for this team. If anything, without Harden, they get just a little bit worse. I know Harden isn't the player he used to be, but we've been seeing what he can do as a playmaker in this kind of, reinvented version of himself. But what have they done? I just don't see it. I think the Knicks are a team where Jalen Brunson is really starting to come into his own as a star in this league. He's just going to be that much better this year. As long as they can stay healthy, Randall shows the improvements he has to make. I would like them winning this division.
I was going to say, there's no way with that hat and that flag, you ain't finna say the New York Knicks, brother. I was like, there's just no way he doesn't at least mention them as a sleeper here. Touching on James Harden, though, you mentioned earlier in the show when a team has a cancer that they just got to get rid of that one employee. Here it is. His name's James Harden. Welcome to the show. My problem with him is he's a guy that people still talk about, man, he's still got it in him. And he's got it in him like one of every 7 games. And other than that, he's just a bum. He goes out there. He does nothing impressive. Like you said, he makes it a cancer thing. He's on the sideline getting into it with his teammates on the bench and yelling at people. He just gives off this vibe of like, I don't want to be here. I'm better than you. He goes and has one big game, and then he rides on it for the next 7 to 10 games until he has another big one and puts up, there's his 3rd triple-double, and everyone wants to hype him up for like 24 hours. I'm not on the James Harden train either. I'm not on the 76ers. To me, it's Boston Celtics or nothing. And if I had to pick a number 2, I would jump on your New York Knicks here. But I just think that everyone's too far behind in this division.
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys. You guys have both touched on the Philadelphia 76ers. They're a mess. You can't, even if you're a Sixer fan and you're confident in your team, there's no way you can put money on them to win this division. There's too much implosion happening with this team already. So it's pretty easy to pick the Celtics for this one, in my opinion.
Bryson, you check out those MVP odds below. You got your boy, Joel Embiid, coming in at plus 650. He's the 4th guy on the board. Does he have a chance here? Or since we're all saying how much these guys are going to struggle, do you think he's not even in this conversation?
He has a chance. I mean, we talked about how many things they have going for them that's going wrong. Imagine if they end up being a 2nd seed and winning that division and Embiid's playing really well. Obviously, the voters are going to take that into account. I don't see it happening. I don't even see him being an MVP finalist. I think the voters are kind of done with him after his debacle of a playoff run last year. So I'm not taking a chance on Joel Embiid for an MVP.
None of us going to take a shot here on the 76ers or Joel Embiid. Jumping over to our division in the Northwest, we got the Nuggets here, minus 370, some big favorites. T-Wolves at 550, Thunder at 600, and then the Jazz and the Trailblazers way behind the pack. Anthony, of the Thunder and the T-Wolves, who gives our boys the biggest problem?
It's definitely going to be the Thunder. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do this year. I mean, we saw last year really made some strides going in the right direction. Plus, you're getting Chet Holmgren back. I'm really excited to see what he's finally going to be able to do, on an NBA court. Super unfortunate start to his career, but who knows? I think that maybe, having that year, obviously coming back from the injury, but also just kind of getting a chance to see, a full season in the NBA kind of from the sidelines, getting able to see, more so the behind the scenes of it all, the coaching, what goes into making an NBA roster, what goes into just different plays and things like that. I think this team, they're not going to give the Nuggets a run for their money at all, for the division, but they'll definitely be there. I'm excited to see it. I think they could make the playoffs for sure. Definitely one of those play-in tournament teams.
Nuggets, I'm with you here no matter what. I agree with you. I mean, the Thunder definitely are the biggest fear here. The T-Wolves, I think it's a down year for the T-Wolves, man. I'm not convinced by this team. I know they have a couple pieces, but you look at these guys' overall roster, there's not many games I'm going to look at with this, like the T-Wolves on the road, and I'm going to take them to win the game. Like, I can't look at the schedule and see many of those games here. So I'm on the Nuggets all day. But, guys, I do think the Thunder at 6-1, just based on value, is maybe worth a sprinkle. Bryson, where are you going here?
I don't know if it's worth a sprinkle, but I'm with Anthony. I think that the Thunder are going to be one of the most improved teams in the NBA. I have them making the playoffs. I like their young roster. I like Chet Holmgren a lot. I think he's going to make them a lot more competitive than they were last year. So I think it's Nuggets all the way, no matter what. But the Thunder are going to be very interesting. I do think they are the second best team in this division.
It's like the movie Draft Day. No matter what, Denver Nuggets.
Yep,
all right. Fair enough, guys. Denver
That's
Nuggets here, minus 370. Yeah, quick shots to that movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch Draft Day. Some people call it corny. I think it's one of the best movies of all time, but that's just me being a football fan. But anyway, back to the NBA. The Southeast Division, Miami Heat. They are minus 175 favorites in their division. Atlanta Hawks here, plus 210. That's their big competition. Then you got the Magic 8-1, the Hornets 35-1, and the Wizards at 100-1. Anthony, Miami Heat minus 175. I know they went on this insane run in the finals last year, or just in the playoffs in general last year. But do you think minus 175 is a bit too high for this basketball team?
I think it is, especially when you consider, we know that their strategy, it's not the regular season. It's the playoffs when this team really starts to come into their own. And their minds, as long as they stay out of the play-in, they're okay. If they hover around the kind of 5-6 area, they're really cool with that, staying there. They don't have to be a top seed in the East. And I just feel, as much as it pains me to say, I think the Hawks are better this year. I just don't see a way that they would have a worse year or even the same year as last year with the backcourt combination of DeJounte Murray and then Trae Young. I know they weren't able to piece it together last year, but when you have that kind of talent in the backcourt, it's hard to imagine that they don't figure out how to use these guys and figure out a way defensively to be able to match up with some of these other teams. I think it's worth a sprinkle for them for sure.
I agree with you. I think it's worth a sprinkle. My problem with the Hawks is dude, they were just so bad last year. Do you remember we would just watch and be like, another loss, another. They're 6-point favorites. They lose by 25. And we're like, what the hell is wrong with this basketball team? I haven't seen enough. I do like the value here. I don't think Miami deserved to be this big of favorites, but I do think they deserve to be favorites. And for that reason, I'm going Miami Heat here. Bryson, who you got?
Yeah, I don't love taking the Miami Heat here either, just because I don't love them being that big of a favorite, like you guys mentioned. But I am not sold on the Hawks. I'm not sold on Trae Young. I don't think he's a winning basketball player. I think he's flashy. I think he's fun. I think he can put up a lot of points. But I don't think he's a winning basketball player. I think what's fascinating is the Heat had the best record in this division last year. They were the 8th seed because they lost a play-in game, but they had a better record than the Atlanta Hawks last year. So even if the Heat don't take the regular season that seriously, they can win the division and be the 6th seed. That's how bad this division is.
Well, guys, jumping over, we got one more division. We're giving you our NBA Finals winners, and then we're breaking down the first game of the year, and we're doing all that in the next 6.5 minutes. So let's have some fun here. One more time, the final division, Southwest, we got the Grizzlies plus 170. Shout out John Morant. The Dallas Mavericks at plus 190. The Pelicans at at plus 200. The Rockets at 35-1, and the Spurs at 55-1. Wide open division. Anthony, we got to keep this one quick. Who's your winner here?
Give me the Pelicans all day. Explosive big three there. People are sleeping on this team.
All right, Bryson.
I thought I was going to be the only one taking the Pelicans. I'm also taking the Pelicans to win this division.
All right. Well, you know what? Painfully, shout out to my boy John Morant. I'm going to go Grizzlies here at plus 170. Someone's got to do it, so I will do it. I know these guys take a little bit more of a risk there at plus 200, but Grizzlies plus 170. I want to say Mavs so bad, but I'll say Grizzlies just because they did show times last year that they were a legit basketball team. So jumping on over to our NBA Finals winners. Anthony, starting with you, brother. Your one pick and your one sleeper pick. Who you got?
My sleeper pick this year is the Pacers. This is a team that getting really bogged down with all this talk in the East for the top two guys. Really talented team. I think bringing in Obi Toppin to get him into a starting role, it's going to bring a really interesting dynamic to the squad.
Love that. And your favorite?
My favorite has to be the Suns. I just like what they're showing on paper so far. I know they have to prove it in the regular season, but I really like the Suns.
Yeah, Bryson's not liking that pick, but Bryson, who is your winner here? Phoenix Suns coming in at plus 650.
I promise it's not a biased pick. I'm taking the Denver Nuggets. they're the NBA champions. They went 16-4 in the playoffs last year, and they brought back 6 of their 8 guys that played regular minutes. I think they're going to be better than they were a year ago. And then my sleeper team, I don't love it because I don't love betting on the Eastern Conference, but I like the Cavs. We mentioned them earlier. Good defensive team. If Donovan Mitchell's happy, if he can be in a good mood come playoff time, they also have some dynamic players on offense. So at plus 3,000, I'll take a shot on the Cavs.
Well, call me a lame, but I'm stealing your long shot pick here. I'm on the Cavs as well at 30-1. We just talked about the defense. Defense wins championships. That might not be quite as true in the NBA as it is in other sports, but I do think that team definitely at 30-1, they have a shot. And then look, man, oh my God, I guess I'll give 2 because I'm boring if I just steal all the Bryson's picks. I do like the Denver Nuggets here. I truly think that this team's going to be a problem. But I'm going to go out on a limb that I didn't think I was going to go out on, and I'm going to go Lakers at 12-1 here. I think AD and Bron are going to have a big year. I expect a very, very big year from Anthony Davis. He's a sleeper MVP pick for me as well. He's way down there in the betting odds. I can't believe I just said that, and I'm so sorry, Nuggets country. But I think at 12-1, if you're looking for some value, that's a good way to go. And that is it, guys, for us over here for our 2023-24 NBA season preview. That is Anthony Hirsch. That is Bryson Owens. I'm your man, Riggs Tamburo. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys.